Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I have a pretty typical situation with my entitled in laws. I met my husband at the workplace I was interning at when I was around 21. It was his dad's company, and him being a fresh graduate, too. He had an intern level job at the company as well, and so did I. We met there, and being the only two interns, we immediately became friends. It was a new city for me, and his dad's company was a well known one. This internship was a huge opportunity for me because it was going to open the doors to a lot more opportunities for me. I knew it was the same case for my now husband. I mean, even though I knew since the start about his dad owning the company, it was pretty obvious to me that his family seemed like the type to make their children work hard for their success, and I had guessed that right. Except for one thing, and that was the fact that this only applied to one out of their two children. Well, I continued to hang out with Victor, my husband, throughout the entirety of the 6 month internship, and by the end of the 4 months, we confessed to each other our attraction towards each other and began dating a few dates after. Everything was amazing. I was doing great at my internship. I mean, I had been told so by Victor's dad himself, who had expressed his satisfaction in my work on numerous occasions. So you guys could only imagine the reaction that his dad had to the news of us dating. He was ecstatic. It was like he sounded even more excited that Victor and I both combined when he asked me out. I felt so lucky. It was like I felt like one of those girls in some fan fictions who had won it all, but of course, my world was soon going to come crashing down. It all started when our internships got over and we both got permanent jobs at places different from each other. We continued dating, seeing each other, and although Victor's mom knew we were dating, we hadn't met in real life. Whenever I suggested Victor that we make plans to do so, he would tell me he wanted to wait because his mom was apparently pretty strict. Although I understood what he meant, I never knew the extent of it, and by the time I did, I realized he was just trying to protect me from her. I first met Karen, my mother in law, after 1 year of dating. It was at Christmas dinner, and oh boy, I still cringe thinking about how messy it was. But on our first meeting itself, I realized what kind of person she was, and I knew if I wanted to get married to my dream man, I would have to tolerate a couple of idiots. And oh boy, his family were filled with it. After meeting the very judgmental, entitled Karen, who made it clear to me that she didn't approve of me because of my class, I met my dear sister in law, Jessica. I couldn't meet her on Christmas Day itself because she was out on some girls' trip. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't meet the both of them together on the same day because I truly would not be able to stay with Victor if I met them both together. Well, the moment I met Jessica, it was pretty obvious that she was the princess of the house. I mean, she was the youngest in her entire extended family and had a say in everything. It was made clear to me by my father in law, who jokingly said that I'll have to be accepted by Jessica to be accepted by everyone. Well, guess what? I wasn't. I mean, why would she like anyone that tried to steal her brother dearest's attention away from her at the slightest? She made her dislike towards me very evident. She hadn't even batted an eye at me or said hello. She just knew she didn't like me, and of course, whatever the princess says, the family agrees. It didn't take long for most of his family to start disliking me. I mean, they would either hate me or avoid me, knowing that if they said anything else, they'd lose the job they had at my father's in law's company. That set the trend for me. Everywhere I'd go with the family, I became the barn of all jokes. I was the one who had to hear all the taunts and all the degrading comments. I still remember how I would cry myself to sleep every single night because I just couldn't get myself to understand why all this happened. This didn't last long, though, because the moment I got married to Victor, I knew what I was getting myself into and started taking a stand for myself, even if it got me into a lot of arguments. My lead was soon followed by Victor, who would argue with his parents for me as well. Needless to say, I had become the most hated person in the family, but honestly, I couldn't care any less because at least it meant that I could live in self respect. This is what brings me to my current situation as well. Now, even though I don't have the best relationship with my in laws, I don't hold my husband back from having a relationship with them. So at least once a month, they come over for dinner. Now, I don't have a problem with that. I do my job of cooking and serving them a warm meal, make small talk, and then leave the four alone to have their only family time. Well, that is how things had been going recently until I noticed that there were really specific things disappearing from my house, like a couple of expensive pieces of jewelry, like small rings and earrings. Now, if it was just one thing, I could chalk it up to my misplacement and let it go. But the fact that it were multiple things that could easily add up to a couple of $1,000 made me want to decide to open and check out the security footage of our house. And there I had it. In clear, high definition, videos of Jessica stealing those pieces. I immediately showed it to my husband, and he was stunned. It was like he, too, had his last straw with her, and we decided to go to the lawyers immediately to file a lawsuit. Now, the word spread, and my in laws called me up to berate me, then hung up while laughing at my face, telling me that they'll easily defeat me. I just wished them good luck before hanging up. Now, a couple of weeks have passed since everything went down. It's pretty obvious that with my proof, they're going to lose. So they've been trying to reach out to me and my husband with their fake apologies, berating us for not forgiving them and letting family matters stay in family. I was pretty self assured in my decision until I talked to my mom, who made me question my decision by asking me if I wouldn't expect someone to side with my younger sister, too, who is of Jessica's age, if she did something like this. Now, I'm finding myself questioning my decision. So, AITA, I received a call from my husband's cousin who wanted to talk to me about this situation, and it seems like my in law's hesitancy towards settling this matter out of court doesn't just stem from their fear of losing the lawsuit, but also more things that have been brewing in the background. She's invited me over to her place to talk about the same. I will update you all once that happens. I met with Melissa, my husband's cousin, today, and well, to put it in short, my in laws are royally screwed. If losing the lawsuit wasn't good enough karma for them, the fact that a lot of their relatives have come forward with their evidence of my sister in law stealing from them and threatening to sue them has started to come up. This only goes to show how fed up everyone is with Jessica and my in laws' shenanigans, and so they're doing everything in their power to try to cover up the fact that they're about to face multiple lawsuits. If just a couple of more lawsuits get reported under their name, it's not just going to hurt their pockets, but also ruin their name because our local media is fast to catch up on things like these. But in all honesty, I can't get myself to feel even an inch of empathy for these people. Hi everyone, here's a final update. A lot has happened since I last updated, and even though I had a lot of requests for updates, I decided to stay quiet until everything became finalized, and well, here it is. Not all of the relatives ended up filing a lawsuit against my in laws, but a few did, and that was enough to set everything ablaze for my in laws. They were swamped up with the media for days, and with such overwhelming evidence, Jessica was sentenced to jail time. It was heartbreaking to see a girl who had all of her future ahead of her go to prison. But no one's going to help you if you can't help yourself, you know? Currently, my in laws are just trying to get their matters together as most of the relatives have cut them off. Surprisingly, a lot of them have reached out to me as well to thank me for helping them take a stand for themselves. Almost made me feel like a superhero there. Ha ha. Well, regardless, I hope this has been a well-deserved lesson for both my in-laws and Jessica. NTA, someone needs to put Jessica in place, and you have it in you, OP. Don't let anyone change your decision. NTA, your mom is just having her maternal instincts going off. Don't hold yourself back, OP. Recently, I hosted a family gathering. I served coleslaw, fruit salad, and cooked meatballs from scratch with a family recipe. I boiled spaghetti as well and put it in a bowl separately from the meatballs. My sister was the only family member of mine in town at the moment, so she arrived early. She asked to help in the kitchen, and I allowed her to do so, assuming she would not sabotage my cooking. When I walked back into the kitchen, to my horror, I saw and smelled that she poured maple into the pasta and meatballs and mixed them into the same bowl. I asked her what the hell she did. She looked confused and responded that she added syrup to the spaghetti. What she did was so shocking that it amused me, and I questioned her reasoning for this move. She said that pasta was a carb and made of wheat, just as pancakes, and that meatballs were red meat, just as bacon, so her combination was normal and would taste good. I simply shook my head and said, "No." It took me a second to comprehend, but she ruined the meal I made. I asked her to make something to make up for what she ruined. She did as I asked, but I had to stop her after she took my Wonder Bread, peeled off the crusts, and spooned coleslaw onto her sandwich. I gave up and told her to stall our guests while I boiled pasta. Making meatballs would take an incredibly long amount of time. When I was done, I told her that she can eat the coleslaw sandwich which she made for dinner because I could not afford to waste more food. When my family and I sat at dinner table to eat, she would try to passive aggressively bring up how I did not let her eat what everyone else was having. I then brought up that she ruined my meatballs with maple syrup. My brother asked us what had happened. I explained how our sister poured syrup into the meal I had cooked. My brother winced and said that despite how unappetizing her combo sounded, it was cruel to not let her eat what everyone else was having and make her eat a horrible sandwich. I told him that's she made the sandwich and that she can eat it. I do feel like I was honestly being an a-hole in this scenario. Now I am asking wise folks of Reddit to tell me if I was being an a-hole. NTA, and I believe she is either developmentally challenged or she was deliberately attempting to sabotage your meal for who knows what kind of cockamamie reasons. For starters, no one just waltzes into someone else's home and adds ingredients to something that is cooking. That is just really poor manners because presumably the person cooking has decided how the dish will be prepared. If the chef asks for an opinion after offering a taste, someone can suggest. Your sister isn't even smart enough to understand that bacon isn't soaked in maple syrup, but it is used as part of the curing process because cured meat generally has a small amount of sweet stuff added as part of the cure, as do lots of barbecue rubs. But spaghetti and meatballs is a dish that has its own flavor profile, and maple syrup isn't part of that. NTA, even if she thinks that's a good combo, WTF, she didn't consult you despite you having made and paid for it all. She doesn't get to make unilateral decisions for everyone eating. Has she ever put syrup on pasta with meatballs before? I just don't even get what she was thinking. It's not like that's a regular thing people do, and she has to have known that. My ex, 32 female, is a wreck of a human being, and unfortunately, I have two daughters with her that I share 50-50 custody with. She has crippling anxiety and depression. While I know that they impact her daily life, I believe she uses them as an excuse to be lazy as well. There are many reasons why I believe this, but when we were together, I noticed that she would always allow her anxiety and depression to hold her back from doing things she did not want to do. Yet, when something she wanted to do came around, she never had any issues. Whether or not her issues are as bad as she claims, co-parenting with her has been a nightmare. It's one thing if she wants to use her conditions as a crutch in her own life, but she constantly uses them to ignore our kids. Both our daughters have expressed to me that they can never talk with their mom about anything serious. If they want to do anything that mom does not want to do, depression and anxiety suddenly boil to the surface right before they do it. However, when mom wants to do anything, it has never been an issue. Yesterday, I got a call from my daughters. Their mom was supposed to pick them up from after school clubs, but had not shown up for nearly an hour. It's a 14-mile journey to their mom's house from their school, and the school buses no longer run when the club gets out. Their mom is supposed to pick them up, and she had not been picking up her calls and ignored every text. I had to leave work early and take them to my house, where they stayed until my ex finally answered our call at 7 p.m. She claimed she was having an incredibly rough day, had not slept the night before, and only got to sleep at noon. The excuse of depression and anxiety came up again, and she said she knew I would pick them up, so she put her phone on mute and went to bed. I lost it. I told her that her disabilities do not excuse her from being a terrible mother and a lazy piece of shit. I won't get into what I fully said to her after that here, but she was crying by the time I finished. I told her that I would also be taking her back to court to contest custody because I will not be allowing something like this to happen again. My daughters are still with me right now, and when I asked my ex if she wanted them back for the rest of her week, she simply did not respond. I've already sent over the documents to my lawyer, but when I told my mom the full story, she got incredibly mad at me. She claims that I was way out of line and that the entire situation was made 100 times worse by me. I also got an incredibly hostile text from my ex's sister telling me that my ex completely broke down and has not been able to function since yesterday. Now I'm wondering if I truly went overboard. NTA, this is a child protection issue. Your daughters are being neglected because of their mother's medical issues. If it was physical health causing her not to be able to care for them properly, you wouldn't even need to ask this question. Your ex needs serious help. The best you can do is support her with that, but your daughters deserve a stable environment where they know they're going to be looked after. I work in mental health, and one of the first things we're taught is child protection. If an adult is incapable of doing that, intervention is needed. It's tough and emotionally difficult for those around people with poor mental health, but you're not wrong for what you said. Support your ex to get help. Do this to show your kids you're still supporting her, and also to help them understand she needs help and love while she gets herself together. NTA for calling her out on just abdicating her responsibilities to pick up the kids. She could have just texted you and asked if you would mind, or maybe try to get someone else to pick them up for her. Anxiety and depression can definitely cause you to neglect your own well being and make everyday life harder. But having a mental illness does not excuse you from parental responsibility. It's the right move to change the custody arrangement and give your ex time to focus on getting herself to a healthier place. You probably owe her an apology for how you unloaded your feelings onto her and how you phrased it, even if she needed the reality check. Not saying I would have been able to hold a respectful conversation about it either, just putting out there that apologizing for the wording might be a start to a healthier co parenting situation. NTA for taking care of your kids. It would have taken her a hot minute to text you and let you know you needed to pick them up, and she didn't. She is an AH for that. I say the following as someone who also has to deal with a manipulative, mental health suffering ex who pulls the same shit as you describe in your post. So I do actually know how damn frustrating it is, and I do understand getting to the point where you just snap. I learned the hard way by doing exactly what you did. Soft YTA for the name calling. You should have stayed calm, explained your concerns like a mature adult. If you had to speak directly with your ex at all, and not subject your kids to more conflict when they already have such a crap time putting up with your ex. Go for full custody by all means, but don't engage with your ex anymore. Manipulative people will drag you down to their level, then beat you with experience. All the best, OP.